Sure. Talking about the future is more than fair. Talking about the past and saying how would you have done something after the fact is a little tougher. As governor, I made calls to people, to family members who lost loved ones. I think out of respect for them and the fact that, of course, anybody would have made different decisions. There's no denying that, but to delve into that and not focus on the future, I think is where I need to draw the line.
There you see Governor Jeb Bush having a rough go of it this week. Yesterday at a press conference in Reno, Nevada, stumbling over yet another attempt at an explanation for that hypothetical question of whether or not he would have made the same decision as his brother to invade Iraq, knowing what we know now, that most of the intelligence was flawed, to say the least. That's a great place to start our roundtable. John Bachman and Miranda Kahn, let's bring in host of The Agenda on Sirius Radio and former aide to Senator Harry Reid, good friend Ari Rabin-Havt, and CEO of Gladius Consulting, Raul. Thank you both for being with us here today.
Pleasure being here.
All right, let's start with you, Ari. We're taking a look at Jeb Bush here. You could make the case that he obviously did not answer that question correctly, and at the same time, you have everybody else.
The first time he was asked the question.
The first time he didn't, he misheard the question. Okay. Is it time to move on past this, or are the other GOP candidates in the race, are they right, including Rand Paul, who jumped on this today, are they right for hitting Jeb on this issue?
I actually, not far be it from me to speak for any Republican or Republican candidate, but I actually think this is a critical issue. And I think the fact that he has bounced around so much on this, from his first answer to his answer on Hannity's show to his answer today in Reno, that to me is actually more concerning than any of his individual answers. The fact that in a week's time, in 1 week, we've gotten 3 answers on this.
Yeah, and Raul, this is a question that he should have been very well prepared for. He should have had a stock answer ready to go, and almost it should have been Pavlovian for his response here. How did he mess this up?
Look, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but let's be real here, man. I mean, this is a hypothetical question. I mean, it's really a sort of a silly question to begin with. I mean, it's kind of like saying, if you had known that, if you had some sort of a crystal ball, would you have done things differently? Of course you would have done things differently, okay? I think the point he was trying to make is that nobody has a crystal ball, okay? And as anybody will tell you, anytime, you're relying on intelligence, that's all it is. It's your best guess. It's intelligence that may or may not be correct. More importantly, the enemy has a mind. They will change. The conditions on the ground change constantly whenever you're going into a wartime situation. To sort of try and get a gotcha moment by saying, would you basically go back and do it all over again, knowing what you know now? It's kind of silly. I mean, of course you wouldn't do what you would in the past if you had some vision of the future, right?
Right.
I think it's a fair question for both him and for Hillary Clinton.
I think it's a fair question too, but Ari, what your point was, I believe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but he should have had a better response to it. Everybody makes mistakes in the campaign trail. You're allowed a slip up every now and then, but the issue has been his inability to recover from that misstatement. And Miranda, you're about to lead us to another clip.
I think it should have been a little more polished. But I think it was going to be impossible for him to answer that question.
Well, it may be seeping into some other questions.
Because he's not going to go and say, yes, my brother made a mistake. I would have done things differently. I think he probably answered it the best by saying that's well, I don't have a crystal ball. That's.
In his attempt to talk about this yesterday, there was another slip of the tongue. Let's play that clip. Do we have that?
Maybe we did a little.
I'm sure you guys have both.
Quickly. Basically, we heard him say, "I'm running for president." I'm sure you guys have heard about this, Ari and Raul. He said, "I'm running for president in 2016, and the focus is going to be about how if I run, how do we create high sustained economic growth where more people have a chance at success, and I will apply my record and the ideas that are relevant going forward." So we gave him.
I think the issue of whether he's going to run or not is simply one of timing, right? I mean, it's just simply trying to figure out.
Yeah, we know he's going to run, but does this, force him to get into the race even sooner?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he'll do it on his own time. I mean, there was an article that came out here in yesterday's Miami Herald talking about the fact that they've basically already got their headquarters here in Miami set up. They're moving forward. But this is just simply a matter of timing. I mean, I think it's a done deal that he's entering the race.
Right. And Raul, Jeb Bush has been blasted for maybe trying to skirt the campaign election laws by running a presidential campaign in this way. Some would say maybe disingenuous. Would you agree with those folks?
Not really. I think, he's doing a very smart job in terms of making sure he keeps the PAC separate from what is in fact the campaign. That's why, in fact, he did in fact lease, I think it was something like 30,000 square feet here in Miami, strictly for the PAC. But in that same article, it mentions the fact that, most of his senior campaign managers are actually someplace else. So, I think he is being very careful to walk that line and make sure that you don't confuse one with the other.
All right, well, it is a fine line to walk sometimes. You guys, we'll pick up the conversation in a few moments. We got to take a step aside for some commercial breaks. And all right, we'll let you weigh in on that, whether or not this might force Jeb's hand a little bit more in this presidential race. All signs indicate that he is going to run. There are certain advantages to not being an official candidate just quite yet, and that's why we're seeing some other folks wait a little bit longer to jump in.
Right, and we're not just going to talk about the presidential race. We're also going to be talking about the Vatican announcing that it's going to recognize Palestine. What this means, coming up next on Newsmax Now.
And we welcome you back to a roundtable discussion, joined now by the host of The Agenda on Sirius XM Radio and former aide to Senator Harry Reid, Rabin-Havt, and political and economic analyst and CEO of Gladius Consulting, Raul, coming to us live via Skype from Miami. Ari, I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in. We know Jeb Bush is using campaign election laws to his advantage by running a campaign mostly from his PAC now, which is all well and good, perfectly within the code of law. But do you think his slip of the tongue might precipitate his announcement and his entry officially into the race?
No, because I think they have a strategy and a timetable related to the PAC. And on the use of the PAC thing, the FEC chair came out 2 weeks ago or a week ago, basically said we have no power to enforce these laws. It's basically open season. It's proof there needs to be reform here. There needs to be rethinking about how we handle and finance campaigns because the FEC said we can't even enforce the laws on the books. And Jeb Bush is taking advantage of that.
All right, we'll leave that issue there. And also interesting to note, you mentioned campaign finance reform. Russ Feingold, who wrote the bill with John McCain that led to Citizens United, announcing today he's going to run for his old Senate seat. We can talk about that another day, but we also want to talk about the Vatican announcing yesterday that it was going to sign a treaty that officially acknowledges the state of Palestine. Of course, the Vatican really first started acknowledging this back in 2012. Not a huge difference here, according to Vatican watchers. But Ari, what do you think about this in terms of relationship between the trilateral relationship between the U.S., the Holy See, and Israel?
Look, I think that the Holy See makes their decisions for whatever reason they are. I think we've had a real problem with bilateral conversations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Both sides at different points have been unwilling to sit down for different reasons. I think the Pope probably feels like he can put some positive pressure on it this way. And frankly, we don't know what will bear out positively, and we don't know how this will work out. So I think the Pope is trying to move the ball, and for that, I actually commend him.
Well, there was some discussion today, Raul, from GOP and defenders of Israel here in this country saying the Pope should stay out of politics in this way. What do you think?
Listen, to a certain extent, I'm sympathetic to those views. I think the timing of this was not particularly helpful given the events in the Middle East. However, as I understand it, this was done on the eve of a visit to the Vatican by the head of the Palestinian state, Mahmoud Abbas. And I think, it was sort of an acknowledgement, again, of sort of a policy that the Holy See has had in the past of sort of recognizing the Palestinian Authority. I think it's a continuation of that. I don't think it's particularly helpful. I'm a Catholic and I'm a Jesuit-trained Catholic. I'm not particularly happy with the sort of some of the activism that we're seeing on the part of the Holy Father, including his reaching out to Cuba and now also to the Palestinian Authority. But that's my opinion. Obviously, as I said, the Holy See is an independent state. They have different interests at mind, and I think it was done for those reasons.
And we want to get your opinion, both of your opinions, about another topic. A West Virginia mother is suing her local school board for violating her son's constitutional rights. Now you can see in this picture Jared Markham wearing a National Rifle Association t-shirt proudly. He was suspended for wearing this shirt because it was, quote, disrupting the educational, disrupting the educational process, as it is for me right now. And when an officer asked Markham to turn his shirt inside out, well, he refused and he was charged with obstructing a police officer. Want to get your thoughts on it. The charges have been dropped, but that's not stopping Markham's mother from filing a lawsuit. Ari, does she have a case?
I hope so, because look, regardless of whether I agree or not with this mother and her child, political speech should be the highest form of protected speech in this country. And while obviously I'm not a supporter of the NRA, nor do I like them very much, telling someone they can't wear a T-shirt supporting what is clearly a large-scale political organization in this country is the basis of the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Raul, your thoughts?
Listen, I hope Ari likes me because I'm a proud member of the NRA and I have been for as long as I can remember. I'm actually a Super Life member, a patron member. But I think I absolutely agree with him. Listen, free speech is free speech. You may not like it. You may not like people wearing an NRA T-shirt, just as you may not like people trampling on the American flag and setting it aflame. But the fact of the matter is that we are entitled to express those opinions in the United States. It's what democracy is all about. It's about free speech first and foremost. And I'm fully supportive of what his mother's doing.
Yeah.
You know, this brings back in my mind, I mean, I remember, you know, I had my 40th year high school graduation recently, and I was looking at our high school photograph. There's a picture of all of us from the rifle team on school grounds with rifles, and nobody thought anything about it back then. Nowadays, even a T-shirt with a rifle on it gets you in trouble. It's insane, insane.
Yeah, that's
I don't know. I must have gone to a really strict school because we had lots of things we couldn't wear. We couldn't wear hats. We couldn't wear jackets. So to me,
well, look,
it's
if there's
like,
a general dress code that says, you know, you have to wear a suit to school every day, I'm fine with that. But what I'm not fine with is singling out a student
Right.
saying your shirt with a political message is disruptive. If there was a general dress code that said you're not allowed to wear a T-shirt and he wore a T-shirt, that's one thing.
That doesn't appear to be the case here, and you're
No,
right,
that
Ari.
doesn't
This
appear to
comes
be the case
in a broader discussion about the First Amendment in this country.
Right.
Obviously, much more to talk about here. But, gentlemen, we have to let you go. Time is out, but we thank you very much for being with us here today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
there's a lot of things going on when it comes to freedom of speech lately, right? From the flags to a T-shirt. Still